majority of people exhaust themselves trying to be seen, trying to be remembered, trying to be the one that matters. They think influence is a game of constant visibility, of always being in the frame. But the truly strategic mind understands something far more potent. Attention is fleeting, but mental real estate is forever. When someone controls your time, that's simple influence. But when they control your thoughts, when their words echo in your mind hours later, when their presence feels unresolved, when you replay their silence, that is power. And that is a game most people lose before they even begin. We've been conditioned to believe that obsession is built on intensity. We pour in more energy, more emotion, more effort, thinking that will forge an unbreakable bond. But that's a trap. Obsession isn't born from what you give, it's born from the tension you create. Your brain is a pattern-seeking machine. It craves completion. When something is fully explained, when a story has a clean ending, the mind relaxes and moves on. But when there's a gap, an unanswered question, a moment of uncertainty, a silence that lingers, the mind can't let go. It loops back, trying to solve the puzzle. This is why the most magnetic individuals aren't the loudest in the room. They are the ones whose presence feels like a puzzle waiting to be solved. What we're exploring today isn't about cheap romantic games or superficial manipulation. It's about leverage. It's a structural understanding of how memory works, how attention flows, and how to create a psychological gravity that pulls the mind back to you, again and again. True influence isn't control over actions, it's occupancy of thoughts. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Power isn't about forcing a reaction. It's about building a psychological architecture so compelling that the other person's own mind does the work for you. When your presence creates unresolved curiosity, when your behavior defies easy prediction, your absence leaves a cognitive friction, you become unforgettable. So today, we're breaking down 7 modern psychological principles designed to turn simple presence into mental permanence. This isn't a guide on how to chase attention. This is a blueprint for how to become psychologically unavoidable. Before we dive in, lock in your intention. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My presence is a permanent imprint. Number 1. Master mental territory, not physical space. The conventional approach is to be omnipresent, always available, always replying, always lingering. But this is a fatal error. Constant presence doesn't create value, it creates familiarity. And familiarity is the enemy of fascination. When someone sees you too often, your energy becomes a background hum, easily processed and quickly forgotten. Strategic influence flips this. Your goal isn't to be around longer, it's to last longer in their mind after you've gone. This is the shift from duration to impact. Most people talk too much, explain too much, and fill every silence. In doing so, they destroy the very engine of mental engagement. Space. The mind needs space to replay. A short, meaningful interaction triggers a reconstruction process. The brain reviews your words, analyzes your tone, searches for hidden meaning. This internal repetition creates familiarity, but when that repetition is happening inside their own head, it transforms into fixation. Instead of giving them more of your time, give them something to think about. Speak less, but with precision. End the conversation while the energy is high, not when it's fading. The strongest psychological hook is an incomplete emotional state. A clean ending lets the brain move on. A sudden, high-energy exit forces the mind to continue the interaction internally. That is how you occupy mental space. Another facet of this is emotional imprint. People won't remember your lengthy monologues. They'll remember the emotional shift, a sharp observation, a calm reaction when chaos was expected, a moment of unexpected insight. If you create that emotional spike and then withdraw, the brain has no new data. It's forced to revisit the old data, amplifying your mental presence. Silence after impact isn't distance, it's psychological amplification. A common mistake is trying to maintain momentum through constant contact. People think continuity builds connection. It doesn't. It builds predictability. Predictability is the death of mental engagement. When someone doesn't know exactly when you'll reappear, your appearances gain weight. You transition from a routine presence to a significant event. And once your presence is an event, your absence is felt. This is the transition from physical interaction to psychological occupation. The most influential people aren't always present. They're the ones whose brief encounters leave a lasting cognitive trace. Short interaction, deep impact followed by space. Because when you laughed, conversation ends and their mind keeps replaying it, you're no longer just interacting with them. You're living in their head. Affirmation. My impact outlasts my presence. Number 2. Remain an unsolved mystery. The human brain is a categorization engine. It looks for patterns to file people away, the funny one, the intense one, the reliable one. Once a label is applied, attention drops. The brain believes there's nothing more to discover. This is why predictability is the silent killer of intrigue. Obsession doesn't come from clarity. It comes from complexity. When someone can't fully define you, their mind stays active. It's trying to solve you, to map your depths. This mental effort, this cognitive investment, is the currency of obsession. Most people make themselves easy to read. Their emotions are transparent, their opinions immediate. They reveal all their layers too quickly, hoping to forge connection. But full transparency eliminates mystery. It tells the brain, we're done here. Strategic presence is about selective revelation. You don't display your full emotional range all at once. You show calm when intensity is expected, sharp humor when seriousness is the norm, silence when others are reacting emotionally. This contrast creates a cognitive dissonance. The mind begins to ask, are they warm or cold, relaxed or intense? And the harder you are to categorize, the more mental energy you command. This isn't about pretending. It's about emotional control and intentional expression. Most people react. The strategic individual responds. They choose when to show intensity and when to show restraint. This controlled variation prevents the mind from forming a stable pattern. Without a pattern, the brain stays on high alert. Another key is emotional independence. When your mood isn't a reaction to the room, when you aren't swayed by social pressure, your behavior becomes harder to predict. You feel grounded but not simple. This balanced stability combined with selective variation locks attention in place. People think being likable is about being easy to understand, but being memorable is about having depth. When someone senses there's more beneath the surface than what's shown, their mind keeps searching. Every interaction becomes an investigation. And when someone is trying to understand you, you already own their thoughts. The rarest position isn't being liked, it's being interesting without trying. Affirmation. I am layered, not labeled. Number 3. Engineer strategic ambiguity. The brain hates open loops. It craves closure, emotional certainty, a clear understanding of where things stand. When you provide that certainty, the mind relaxes. And when the mind relaxes, interest fades. This is why total transparency, while comfortable, rarely creates psychological intensity. If someone knows exactly how you feel, exactly how you'll react, and exactly where they fit, the equation is solved. There's no reason to think about you when gone. But introduce controlled uncertainty and the dynamic shifts. The mind stays active. It replays conversations, analyzing tone and timing. It searches for hidden signals. It tries to predict your next move. This search creates mental attachment. Now, this is not about being confusing or emotionally unstable. That breeds distrust. Controlled uncertainty is different. It's rooted in emotional steadiness. Your energy is consistent, but your availability is not. You're warm one moment, reserved the next. You engage deeply, then step back without explanation. Your attention feels intentional, not automatic. This creates an open loop. They can sense your interest, but they can't measure its depth. This space between connection and certainty is where obsession flourishes. Timing is a powerful tool here. The person who replies instantly to everything becomes predictable. Their attention feels cheap. But when your responses follow your own rhythm, your presence feels chosen. Mind begins to value your engagement because it's not guaranteed. Consistency in character combined with variability in access creates a powerful psychological tension. Language is also critical. Over-explaining kills mystery. When you define every emotion and intention, you leave no room for interpretation. And interpretation is what keeps the mind working. Strategic communication is clear, but not exhaustive. You say enough to build connection, but leave space for the other person to wonder. One more factor amplifies this: emotional independence. When your engagement isn't a reaction to someone else's mood, you signal that you are a self-contained world. They can't fully predict you, they can't fully measure you, and their mind keeps trying. The most persistent form of attention comes from unanswered emotional questions. Affirmation. I am the question they can't answer. Number 4. Become a source of elevation. The mind is instinctively drawn to growth. People are constantly scanning for environments and relationships that make them feel sharper, more capable, more alive. The quiet question everyone is asking is, does my life feel better when you're around? If the answer is yes, a deep psychological bond forms. Most people try to create attachment through comfort. They're agreeable, supportive, easy to be around. While comfort is nice, it's not deeply impactful. Comfort relaxes. Elevation activates. When someone leaves an interaction with you feeling more motivated, more focused, or mentally energized, their brain tags you as a source of progress. And the mind clings to anything that feels like a stepping stone to a better version of itself. This isn't about giving advice or constantly correcting them. True elevation happens through example. When your lifestyle reflects discipline and purpose, when your conversations bring clarity instead of noise, your presence becomes an influence. You're no longer just another person, you're a catalyst. Your emotional atmosphere plays a huge role. If your energy is calm, grounded, and forward-focused, people will subconsciously regulate themselves to match you. Your presence becomes a stabilizing force in a chaotic world. And stability, when others are volatile, feels powerful. Selective reinforcement is also key. When you acknowledge strength, effort, or progress in someone, your approval carries weight. You're not giving away validation freely. You're recognizing growth. When your words feel earned, people start to value your opinion. And once they value your opinion, they start thinking about how they appear to you, even in your absence. That's psychological elevation turning into mental presence. There's a contrast effect here. If your mindset and conversations consistently move toward improvement, other interactions start to feel stagnant by comparison. Your presence becomes associated with momentum. And momentum is addictive. People return to you not because you ask, but because you make them feel like they're moving forward. Affirmation. I elevate the room. Number 5. Harness the power of emotional contrast. The brain is wired to notice change. It adapts to constancy. A steady stream of positivity, intensity, or humor eventually becomes background noise. This is why someone who is always on eventually fades into the wallpaper. Contrast resets attention. Most people operate in one emotional mode. They're always serious, always playful, or always intense. Because their pattern is stable, others stop paying close attention. They know what's coming. But when your emotional range is dynamic, the mind stays alert. If you're usually calm, a moment of sharp wit is powerful. If you're typically reserved, a brief moment of genuine warmth is deeply meaningful. The brain encodes these shifts because they break expectation. This isn't about mood swings driven by impulse. It's about controlled variation. Your core remains stable, but your expression is intentional. This flexibility creates a sense of depth. People experience different emotional layers around you, making your presence feel alive rather than flat. Flat is easy to process. Layered is unforgettable. Contrast creates emotional spikes, and the brain remembers peaks more than steady states. A moment of unexpected encouragement, a sudden insightful comment, or a calm reaction during tension creates a stronger memory than hours of neutral interaction. These moments become reference points. Later, the mind replays them, and your psychological presence grows. Contrast also boosts perceived authenticity. Someone who shows only one emotional tone can feel robotic. But when your expression changes naturally with context, you feel real and grounded. People trust emotional intelligence more than emotional intensity. They start to pay closer attention to your subtle cues, your tone shifts, your level of engagement. The moment someone starts monitoring your emotional signals, your influence increases, because their focus has shifted to you. Another effect is emotional value. When warmth is constant, it's taken for granted. When attention is always available, it feels worthless. But when warmth appears selectively, it feels earned. And what is earned is valued. Over time, your emotional range becomes your psychological signature. People don't just remember what you said, they remember how it felt to be around you. And emotional memory is far stronger than informational memory. Affirmation. My contrast creates my imprint. Number 6. Exit before the peak. Most people stay too long. They drag out conversations, trying to squeeze every last drop of connection from a moment. They believe more time equals a stronger bond. But in reality, overextending kills the impact. Every interaction has a curve. It rises, peaks and falls. If you stay past the peak, the energy dissipates. The conversation becomes repetitive, the novelty vanishes, and the brain registers the ending as ordinary. People don't remember the middle of a conversation. They remember the emotional high point and how it ended. If the ending is flat, the whole interaction loses its power in memory. The strategic individual exits at the peak. When the energy is high during laughter, deep focus, or intense curiosity, they step away. This creates an incomplete emotional state. The brain didn't get closure. It expected more. Instead, it gets absence. And absence at the right moment creates psychological tension. The mind replays the peak moment, trying to extend it. This principle applies everywhere. Meetings, dates, phone calls, texts. If you're always the last one to leave, your presence becomes routine. But when you disengage with calm confidence while the interaction is still alive, you signal that your time is valuable. Your attention is intentional. You're not dependent on the interaction for validation. That perception increases your psychological value. Many people stay longer because they're enjoying the attention or fear that leaving will weaken the bond. But controlled withdrawal does the opposite. It protects the emotional peak. It leaves the other person wanting more rather than feeling relieved it's over. Relief is the enemy of memory. Leave them wanting, not satisfied. When you exit naturally without over-explaining, you project internal stability. You're not managing their reaction, you're managing your own energy. This creates quiet authority. Short interaction, strong energy, clean exit. This pattern builds a powerful psychological expectation. People learn that time with you is always high quality, never excessive. And because it's limited, its perceived value increases. They look forward to the next interaction because the mind holds on to unfinished, positive experiences longer than completed ones. Affirmation. I leave them leaning in. Number 7. Never broadcast need. Nothing erodes psychological influence faster than visible dependency. The moment. 2. Someone senses that your emotional state, your happiness, or your security hinges on their attention. The dynamic shifts. Value drops. Not because they lose respect for you as a person, but because the dynamic changes from choice to obligation. The mind is drawn to what feels chosen, not what feels needy. Most people signal need without realizing it. They seek constant reassurance. They adjust their behavior to maintain approval. Their mood rises and falls based on the other person's response. This creates a sense of pressure, and pressure suffocates attraction and intrigue. High psychological value comes from internal fullness. When your life has structure, your goals are clear, and your mood isn't a weather vane for external validation, you communicate independence. Instead of feeling like you're trying to keep someone close, it feels like you're allowing them into an already complete world. That shift is powerful. Emotional restraint is critical here. People often overexpress interest because they think it builds connection. They reveal too much, too fast. They give away their investment before the other person has developed their own. This removes all tension. And without tension, the mind relaxes. Strategic restraint isn't coldness. It's letting your engagement grow naturally. You show interest, but not urgency. You appreciate, but you don't orbit. You create space for the other person to move toward you, rather than simply receiving your attention. When your life appears full with goals, passions, and momentum, your attention feels like a scarce resource. This signals abundance. People instinctively assign higher value to individuals whose time is limited by meaningful pursuits. Your presence becomes an opportunity, not a necessity. The strongest position is quiet self-sufficiency. You are warm but not dependent. Engaged but not attached. Present but not seeking. Because the rarest and most attractive signal of power is this: I want connection, but I don't require it. Your world is complete. They are invited, not required. Obsession isn't built through pressure or manipulation. It's built through architecture. Scarcity creates value. Absence intensifies desire. When you show up selectively, the brain assigns importance to every moment you're present. Uncertainty creates thought. The more someone can't fully predict you, the more mental energy they invest. Contrast creates imprint. Peaks and valleys are what the memory clings to. Non-neediness creates pursuit. When someone sees your world doesn't revolve around them, they step forward voluntarily. Machiavellian power is simple: control perception, control timing, control access. Master these, and you stop chasing, you stop explaining. You create conditions where the mind chooses you again and again. This isn't about being loved. It's about being mentally unavoidable. To occupy the thoughts of others without effort, to remain a persistent presence even when you're gone. If you take these principles seriously, you can build relationships, networks, and environments where your presence carries far more weight than most people ever achieve. Your interactions become energy. Your absence becomes weight. Your influence becomes enduring. If this video helped you understand the architecture of influence, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to Winds of Thought for more on psychology and strategic presence. Drop your affirmation in the comments. I am mentally unavoidable. Your mind is your weapon. Now you know how to make it theirs.